Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Manitoba Start is the leading provider of career services to the newcomers in the province of Manitoba and connects businesses to a world-class workforce. I would like to welcome you all to this Labor Market Connection webinar, a series of designated broadcasted webinars to assist you in the entering in the Manitoba labor market. Before we start, I'm going to say the land of acknowledgement. Manitoba Start acknowledges that we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Anishinaabeg, Dakota, Oyate, Denusulin, and Nahuatl nations, and the homeland of Red River Métis. We acknowledge that our water is sourced from the Shola Lake 41st Nation. As a newcomer serving organization, we commit to learning about the histories, cultures, and the rights of the Indigenous community, to strive and to build a respectful and supportive relationship for all. Our today's webinar is focusing on CPHR. My name is Luna. I'm an outreach coordinator here at Manitoba Start, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Given the large number of participants who joined this webinar, we have muted your microphone to allow for better clarity and less interference. And before we begin, I will go through a couple of housekeeping items. So you can use the raise hand features to indicate that they have a question or a comment. To do this, you can click on the participants button in the meeting control and find the raise hand icon next to your name and click on it. This will notify us that we have a raised hand. And Teams webinar also have a Q&A features that allows attendees to ask questions specifically in the Q&A panel. So to access this, click on the More Options 3 dots button in the meeting control and select Q&A. And you can then type your question in the Q&A panel as well. If you have a cell phone, you can do the same thing here as it shows. And before we start today's webinar, and I would like to run a few polls to get to know you more better. So we'll get into the polls. So the first poll will be, are you registered with Manitoba Start? You can answer yes or no. I'll give you a few moments to answer. Okay, so 100% the response is yes. The second question is, where are you joining us from today? North Manitoba, Southern Manitoba, Winnipeg, and outside Canada. So your answers are 100% from Winnipeg. And the third question, do you need help with resume, cover letter, or interview preparation? Okay, so the responses are 60% yes and 40% no. And the first will be, what is your reason for attending this webinar? Are you internationally educated professional, settlement worker, career coach, or other? So we have 50% internationally educated professionals. Oh, here we go. 43 internationally educated professionals, 43 settlement workers, and 14% other. So thank you all for participating in the polls. Again, today's webinar is with the CPHR. CPHR Manitoba is exclusively certified body in the Manitoba for the National Recognized Chartered Professional in Human Resources, CPHR designation, the leading standards for HR professionals in Canada. If you are interested in pursuing a career in human resources, you should consider becoming a designated as chartered professional in human resources. The CPHR designation is the industry standard of excellence for those working in the field of HR, as it requires an individual to achieve and maintain demonstrated competency and experience relevant to HR profession. The research has shown that CPHR designation can enhance your career opportunities and compensation potential. So please welcome Kelly from CPHR. Over to you, Kelly.
Thanks, Luna. Welcome, everybody. My name is Kaylee Claprat. I'm the Standards and Membership Manager with CPHR Manitoba. I'm joined today also by Ron Gauthier, our Chief Executive Officer, who will be providing some insight at the end of today's presentation as to what the market's currently looking like here in Manitoba for HR professionals. I know some of you joining us may be interested in pursuing the CPHR designation and want to know more about what that looks like. And some of you may be helping others get settled who are looking to potentially pursue. So we're going to talk in depth today about CPHR Manitoba, who we are, what the designation is, the benefits and opportunities that come with pursuing the designation, and some things to consider along the way. We do cover a lot of information, so if you have any questions, please feel free to send them in the chat and Q&A section as Luna identified, and we'd be happy to answer them at the end. So let me just share my screen here and get the slides up, and we will get started. So Chartered Professionals in Human Resources, or CPHR, it is a nationally recognized designation, as Luna mentioned, and CPHR Manitoba is responsible for awarding it provincially. At CPHR Manitoba, our tagline is People Leading Business. We want to ensure that HR has a seat at the executive table always. It's really what the CPHR designation and CPHR membership is all about. The HR field has evolved, and it's no longer its own department in isolation. It has become strategically integrated across functional teams to drive business excellence. So People Leading Business is what we see, and anytime you come across CPHR, you're probably going to see those words as well. A little bit about the association as a whole. So here in Manitoba, we have over 2,000 members. Nationally, there's over 31,000 members across the other provincial member associations. Our mission is very simple. It's advancing the human resource profession. Our vision or our long-term goals is that there's wide acceptance by all stakeholders that CPHRs positively impact leadership, employees, organizational health, and organizational performance. There's increased demand for CPHRs in all organizations, and the CPHR designation is highly desired by students, human resources practitioners, and the business community. CPHR Manitoba influences government, the business communities, and its members, and the CPHR designation and the profession are synonymous with one another. Our values as an association are achievement, inclusion, innovation, integrity, and relationships. And the three pillars of our current strategic plan are to promote the CPHR brand, support CPHR development, and foster public confidence in CPHRs. So here in Canada, designations are awarded provincially and recognized nationally. So you may start the process with CPHR Manitoba, and then potentially life or your career takes you elsewhere across Canada. You can look to transfer the designation status into those provinces. So membership is held separately. So you would work with the two associations that you're looking to do that transfer between. And that's how you would go about it. Ontario is separate from CPHR Canada. In 2014, they adopted a three-tiered designation system. So that mutual recognition process and that transfer process looks slightly different because it is analyzed on a case-to-case basis, but we do collaborate with them on a lot of different opportunities and events. So there's still a relationship there, but just know that that would look slightly different for you if you're looking to pursue in Ontario. So across Canada, essentially CPHR Canada is the umbrella organization. So they set out a lot of things that are related to the designation process, including the competency framework that we're going to talk about a little bit later on, which informs the designation process. And then all of the provinces are where the members are. So according to the CPHR Canada National Salary Survey that was conducted in 2021, 91% of HR professionals in Canada are involved in the CPHR program or are planning to become involved in the future. 75% are CPHRs, so they hold the full designation. 16% are CPHR candidates, which is a professional title that shows that they are actively working towards the designation, and 9% plan to attain the CPHR designation in the future. There is mutual recognition, so for any individuals who are maybe coming to Canada who have chartered membership with CIPD, SHRM, CIPM Nigeria or CIPM Sri Lanka, you can look to have that chartered membership recognized towards the CPHR designation. So that process looks slightly different. And on the flip side, if you pursue your CPHR designation first, you can also look to have that mutually recognized with their associations as well. So if you're coming from the United Kingdom, the United States, Nigeria, or Sri Lanka, and you have a relationship with those associations, I recommend reaching out to us so that we can have a conversation about what that could look like for you, because you may be closer to the designation than you realize. Now we're going to talk about the value, benefits, and opportunities of achieving the CPHR designation and being a member of CPHR Manitoba. To kick things off, I want to share with you the story of Nish Verma, who is a fellow chartered professional in human resources, or FCPHR, which is the highest component of the designation. This is part of his career path. He came to Canada from India in 2002, and his words really give a sense of how the CPHR designation can give you a head start and strategic advantage in the field. So Nish says, I encourage anyone considering becoming a CPHR to make this commitment to their future. I achieved my CPHR designation in 2006, which was just 4 years after arriving in Canada, to demonstrate my commitment and passion for the human resources profession. As a CPHR, my network, knowledge, and confidence grew monumentally, and within 6 years, I advanced from an HR specialist role to Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer. So Nish is a fellow, as I mentioned. He's also a past chair for the board of directors at CPHR Manitoba, and he is the COO and VP of HR for Mondetta Clothing Company. Some other reasons that you may wish to pursue the designation, it's about that strategic head start, but we also see that on average, it does pay to have a professional title in HR, according to the Crop Salary Survey of HR Professionals that was just conducted this year. So we see here within Manitoba, those who are working with a professional title on average earn $104,000 annually. Those working without a professional title on average earn $79,000 annually, of course, subject to the organizations and the scope of roles, but this is what we're seeing on average in the field. Across Canada, very similar, that $20,000 difference, with a professional title being at an average of $110,000 and a non-professional title at $90,000. Another thing that we see, this stat, even though it's a bit older, we do still share it because the outcome of this analysis is still happening today, and it was just worded really well in this study. So 51% of HR generalists with the CPHR became HR managers in 5 years, whereas only 30% of HR generalists without the CPHR became HR managers in 5 years. So when you're comparing designated to non-designated professionals, we see that designated professionals tend to advance more quickly. In the application process, when someone is looking first at your resume, it'll take 6 seconds to kind of have that first impression. So having the 4 letters CPHR can really help you stand out. Now, it's important to us that we look to all of our stakeholders and what they're saying about the designation. So when we look to our members to see what they're sharing with us, according to our 2023-2024 Members as Owners survey, 91% of respondents indicated that they consider HR a strategic partner at their organization, either fully or partially. So that goes back to that people leading business tagline. 87% of our members indicated that their organization understands the value of having a CPHR on staff. So not just having someone dedicated in HR working for the organization, but having someone who has the designation. According to the Manitoba Chamber of Commerce Business Outlook survey conducted in 2023, when we looked to the business community, awareness of the CPHR designation in Manitoba was at 70%. This is significantly climbed. Ron will speak a little bit about that later. And 62% of respondents reported that the designation would be valuable to their organization. We also see that a lot of job postings are asking that someone is actively working towards or holds a CPHR designation. So this was a big jump that we saw back in 2007 to 2011. We still see a majority of postings. A lot of our first points of contact with individuals who reach out to us is that they've seen or come across a job posting that is asking that they have this and they want to learn more about it. So it can open up a lot of opportunities, especially when we're talking about more senior level roles, as they're looking for someone who's bringing that proven expertise. Because when we talk about the benefits of being a CPHR, first and foremost, proven expertise is at the top of mind. HR professionals who pursue the CPHR designation have to meet the minimum requirements that are set out by their provincial HR association, which are measuring their competence and experience as HR professionals. Pardon me. By pursuing the CPHR designation, you're proving your ability to tackle all aspects of HR, and you're demonstrating to employers and colleagues alike that you are a true HR expert. As a CPHR, you're also committed to continual learning. As you become designated and hold the full designation, you have to complete continuing professional development or CPD hours, and your commitment to constantly update your HR skills reflects your long-term passion for the profession. Demonstrated commitment, it's not just about that continuous learning, it's also being committed to the process and committed to the profession as a whole. By pursuing your CPHR designation, you're joining the class of HR professionals that employers are seeking out. Knowledge community, as a CPHR, you get to be part of a community where you get to interact with and learn from other HR professionals. And ethical behavior, as a CPHR, you demonstrate that you're committed to the code of ethics and rules of professional conduct, which is demanding the highest ethical standards for the profession. Now we're going to be providing a general overview about the pathways to becoming a CPHR. So we're going to kind of touch on a whole bunch of different points here. Rest assured, no matter what your background is, there is a way to become designated if you're pursuing a career in HR. We just look to your education and your experience to determine what pathway best suits you. So if after today's session, you're not quite sure what that looks like, you can always reach out to us directly, and we're happy to continue the conversation. For the pathways to becoming designated, there are 5 requirements. First and foremost is membership. In order to pursue and maintain any component of the CPHR designation, it is set out by CPHR Canada that you have to hold active membership with a provincial member association. Membership is annual and it's subject to the status that you hold at the time of registration and renewal. Our membership year here in Manitoba is June 1st through May 31st annually, and you can sign up at any point during the year. Then we look to knowledge. So you have to demonstrate the technical and theoretical knowledge of the CPHR competencies by either passing the national knowledge exam or demonstrating equivalencies through an accredited post-secondary program and applying for the national knowledge exam waiver. When we talk about education, ultimately your educational background in human resources and your highest level of post-secondary education are going to determine what this pathway looks like for you. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then we look to experience, where you're going to be demonstrating the required time and level of work experience practicing human resources within the last 10 years, depending on your highest level of post-secondary education. Experience does not need to be from Canada. Education also does not need to be from Canada as it relates to the pathways, and we'll talk about that over the next couple of slides. And of course, professional conduct. The CPHR designation is assuring employers, clients, and other HR professionals that a CPHR has committed to abide by the Code of Ethics Rules of Professional Conduct, and a breach of this code can result in disciplinary action, including possible removal of the designation and financial implications. So on this slide here, this is just a diagram that's showing kind of how these pathways might work for you. So everything starts at the top with membership with CPHR Manitoba. From there, you're either going to look to write the national knowledge exam by meeting the educational requirement and challenging the exam, or look to graduate from an accredited program with CPHR Canada and applying for the national knowledge exam waiver. From there, you look to have your experience assessed, your highest level of post-secondary education, again, whether it's within Canada or from outside of Canada, is going to determine how many years of experience are required for this assessment. CPHR Manitoba does offer information sessions on a regular basis pertaining to the experience component. So if you already have a whole bunch of experience that you're coming with, I highly recommend signing up for one of our webinars so that you can dive a little bit more in depth into that. So to kick things off, before we talk about the exam and the waivers and how that all works, plus the experience definitions, we're going to talk about the CPHR competency framework. The CPHR competency framework is the foundation on which the CPHR designation rests. It is used by employers and the public to better understand the value of CPHRs. It's used by the academic community in the design and development of course curriculum and profession-specific programs. It's used by CPHRs to validate their skills and abilities and to articulate their skills and abilities as a CPHR. It's used by CPHR Canada member associations for continuing professional development requirements. And it's used by future CPHRs, maybe many of you here today, to understand the knowledge, skills, and abilities required to become designated. Professions update their competency frameworks every 3 to 7 years in order to remain relevant to stakeholders. And so the criteria to become designated and maintain a designation are also going to evolve over time. So it's important to note that what we're presenting to you today is the process as it stands. Should this be something you wish to explore in the future, we always recommend reaching out to us so that we can have a conversation in case there's anything that's changed and developed. And all of those changes and developments are going to reflect the high standards that are held by the designation of the profession and reflect best practices while potentially removing barriers that might exist. So this is a snapshot of the competency framework. There is a full competency framework found online at cphrmb.ca. On the left-hand side, you're going to see that there are 9 HR-specific competency areas that have been identified. Those represent 49 HR-specific competencies. So we look at areas related to integrated talent management, so total rewards, learning development and succession planning, workforce planning, and mobility, the strategic development of organizations, organizational change and development, innovation, HR technology and analytics, and organizational relationships and wellness. So employee and labor relations, total health and wellness, and inclusion, diversity, and human connections. As we're looking at the HR designation process, a lot of things are rooted specifically in this side of the competency framework. However, there are general competencies that do accompany them at points in the process. So this is more so for you as an individual, your ethical practice, your personal agility, continuous learning, and your leadership, how you interact with others, how you may guide, coach, and advise, collaboration and communication, relational intelligence, and working digitally, and how you interact with an organization. So your business acumen, data and sense making, systems thinking, and leading projects. So there's 12 general competency areas, and those represent 48 specific general competencies within the framework itself. Now we're going to talk about the National Knowledge Exam, NKE, and the NK waiver, pardon me. So when we talk about this, this is where a lot of the decision making might happen for you. You may be looking to take a new program. You may be looking to challenge the exam if you already have post-secondary education and human resources. For us, we're always trying to find the quickest way to recognize your experience in your education to determine the pathways so that we can have it tested and verified for you to become potentially designated. So the National Knowledge Exam itself, or the NKE, assesses one's understanding of the CPHR competency framework as it relates to academic knowledge. Academic knowledge is referring to the basic facts, policies, practices, methods, legislation, etc. It is offered once per year in the fall by CPHR Canada. There's 160 multiple choice questions, and 90% of the examination is based off of those HR specific competencies, and 10% of the examination is based off of those general competency areas. There is an online preparation course available, as well as some practice exams and a textbook listing online. We usually recommend about 2 months of study time, and the exam can be written in both official languages, so English and French. When we look at the National Knowledge Exam, if you already have HR-specific education, you may want to have that verified to see if you're eligible to write, because CPHR Canada added an educational requirement to the designation process as it relates to the National Knowledge Exam to ensure that a candidate has a foundation of HR knowledge aligned to the competency framework, which is building on the credibility of the designation by establishing a standard for the educational needs of a CPHR, but also allowing the writer to feel a little bit more prepared because they know they've been tested on the material in some capacity. All writers have to demonstrate that they've met this criteria. It might slightly differ from province to province. As mentioned earlier, the designation is awarded provincially and recognized nationally. Here in Manitoba, we have a couple of ways to meet it. The biggest thing is we would look to your education to see how that might align in the areas as it relates to the HR competencies of the framework, and see if you have enough course content. If it's found that you might not be eligible because perhaps your background isn't quite in HR when we talk about education, we can look to maybe take courses that might make you eligible to waive or to just meet the requirement to be able to challenge the exam. There are accredited programs. Post-secondary programs are qualified to be accredited if it is determined that at least 80% of the competency framework is addressed through the content that the course is doing. So the biggest question that we usually get is, how come my program isn't accredited? If it hasn't gone through the official process with CPHR Canada, it's not verifying that graduates have been tested on that minimum 80%. There is a minimum grade point average associated with it to ensure that they have a high level of understanding and are essentially demonstrating what they would be demonstrating if they were to pass the exam. So if you graduated from an HR program, a bachelor's or a master's in another country, right, it wouldn't necessarily have gone through that accreditation process, and therefore you'd be looking to either meet the educational requirement and write the National Knowledge Exam, or you would be looking to potentially complete one of these accredited programs to be able to waive. There is an application deadline, which is 5 years from the graduation date. In Manitoba, this is the listing of programs here. There are programs across Canada that are accredited through the other associations as well. So at Assiniboine College, there are two programs, the Business Administration Diploma with an HR specialization and the Human Resource Management Advanced Diploma. There is a Captus Institute CPHR academic program that you could look to potentially complete some courses and have some of your courses recognized as they relate to HR. The Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technologies, the Postgraduate Certificate in Human Resource Learning and Development. At Red River College Polytechnic, RRC Polytech, the Human Resource Management Certificate and the Business Administration Diploma with an HR major. Robertson College, the Human Resources Professional Diploma Program. Through the University of Manitoba Extended Education, the Human Resource Management Certificate. Through the Asper School of Business, the Bachelor of Commerce, and the Bachelor of Arts Advanced Major and General Major in Labor Studies. At the University of Winnipeg, the Professional Applied and Continuing Education, or PACE, Human Resource Management Diploma Program is also accredited. We continuously work with post-secondaries across Manitoba to have them be assessed towards this, so this list may change. So if you're looking to take a program that's rooted in HR because it aligns better and it might not be on this list, there's still a way to go about getting designated, so always keep that in mind. Once someone has successfully passed the National Knowledge Exam or has completed an accredited program and officially gone through the application process to be approved for the National Knowledge Exam waiver, they become a CPHR candidate. A CPHR candidate is a professional it essentially shows that you've passed the knowledge component of the designation process. So that's the demonstrating technical and theoretical knowledge of the CPHR competencies. And so it's a professional title that you can use in resumes, business cards, emails, LinkedIn, or any other public profiles. The CPHR designation is valued by the employment community. So the ability to recognize and be recognized as a CPHR candidate is going to give you additional recognition and help you stand out from others in the field. This is a status that shows that you're actively working towards the designation. So for those job postings I mentioned earlier that are asking that someone is actively working towards the designation, this status is going to verify that for you. If you're not a CPHR candidate, but you hold membership with the association, you can promote yourself by saying member of CPHR Manitoba or CPHR Manitoba member. Very important that you have Manitoba in there and the membership, because CPHR is trademarked for those who hold the designation. CPHR candidate status, it means that you're serious about HR, and because you've proven that understanding, the next step is always looking to complete that experience component if you hold the CPHR candidate status. You can hold the status for up to 10 years, during which time you will look to apply for the validation of experience. We also always announce new CPHR candidates and new CPHRs in our magazine, our biannual magazine, as well as our weekly newsletter to promote to the membership, who is full of HR professionals, that you've achieved this new status. Now we're going to give an overview of the validation of experience in this next section. So as I mentioned, we do offer information sessions that dive more in depth. So that might be of interest to you if you have experience already and you're looking to maybe start this process. You can apply for the validation of experience first if you're looking to challenge the exam at a later point. So there are some parameters, and we would also be happy to discuss that as well. For the validation of experience, there are 2 intakes per year, November 15th and March 15th annually. And we have those info sessions as well as a handbook available online to help applicants who are working towards this process in the designation. The requirements to pass the VOE, first and foremost, again, is that membership in good standing with CPHR Manitoba. The first part of the application, you're going to look to demonstrate that you have acquired the necessary type and number of years of HR experience within the past 10 years. So there's 2 10-year timelines. If you hold the candidate status, you must complete this process within 10 years in order to become fully designated. But when you apply for the VOE, you can go back 10 years. So it's not dependent on your membership. It's not dependent on if you have that CPHR candidate status. It's based on the date of your application. So if you were to apply in November 15th of 2025, you could go back to November 15th of 2015 to utilize that experience. For each pathway, your highest level of post-secondary education is going to determine how many years of experience are required for this part of the application. So if you have a bachelor's degree or higher, you're looking at 3 years of work experience in HR. If you have a diploma as your highest level of post-secondary, you're looking at 4 years of work experience in HR. If you have a certificate, then you'd be looking at 5 years of work experience in HR. And if you don't have any post-secondary education, you'd be looking at 8 years of experience. For this experience, a majority of the work, 51% or more, must be HR work. So not looking specifically to your title, but really looking at the scope of responsibilities of your role. The next part of the application, you have to demonstrate a minimum of 8 successful examples aligned to the HR-specific competencies of work experience using the STAR method. So our information session breaks down how you can fill out this application, but really now it's talking about that application piece and how you're demonstrating an applied understanding in addition to that knowledge that you have in that area. And of course, agreeing to abide by CPHR Manitoba's Code of Ethics and Rules of Professional Conduct. So to give you some insight when we talk about the type of experience, experience is defined in one of two ways by CPHR. So advisory HR experience involves the exercise of independent judgment to establish a diagnosis in human resources, making recommendations and influencing decisions, as well as program development and implementation of activities, policies, or practices in human resource management. The role would allow for autonomy in decision-making, analyzing and interpreting information, and being accountable to make decisions and take responsibility for those decisions. Administrative HR is the other way that it is defined, which involves work that is prescribed and transactional, and autonomy and execution with direction that is clearly defined, usually by someone else at the organization. Diagnosing problems and giving advice would not be majority, if any, of the responsibilities for someone in an administrative role, and HR tasks are more likely routine in nature, lower in complexity, and again, that autonomy and execution, that direction that you're given, is clearly defined by someone else. So when we talk about the CPHR designation and indicating that you're at that next level, we're really looking at advisory HR experience. So when we break it down further, advisory HR experience really comes down to 3 factors. Independence of actions, the amount of planning, self-direction, and decision-making that you have in your role. The depth of work requirements, the extent to which your work requires information analysis, diagnosis, and interpretation. And responsibility for work outcome, the accuracy and extent to which you are held accountable for your work and decisions. Advisory HR experience doesn't necessarily mean supervisory or managerial, and it doesn't matter if you're working as an independent contractor or as an employee of an organization. So if we put this into practice and we look at the specialized field of recruitment, some administrative level of tasks, again, a little bit more routine in nature and a little bit lower in complexity, may involve posting jobs, assisting in interviews, attending career fairs, conducting background checks, screening resumes, etc. Advisory level tasks, there's more responsibility for that information analysis, more responsibility for the outcome, and a lot more independence in terms of taking the lead on some of these aspects. It may include things like creating workforce plans, implementing policies and processes around talent management, making final hiring decisions, talent mapping, or analyzing talent needs and gaps. When we talk about the years of experience specifically, some administrative HR can be recognized towards the years of experience, so a maximum of 1 year across most of the pathways. And this is just for folks who are maybe starting out their career in human resources and are looking to apply a little bit sooner. If you have all advisory level experience, that's fantastic. That's really what this assessment is looking towards. So if you're on the degree pathway, a total of 3 years is required. A minimum of 2 have to be at that advisory level, but you can supplement if needed with a maximum of 1 year of administrative HR. On the 4-year pathway, if your diploma is your highest level of post-secondary education, a minimum of 3 years have to be at that advisory level, and you can submit up to a maximum of 1 year administrative. For the certificate, for a total of 5 years of work experience in HR, a minimum of 4 years have to be at that advisory level, and a maximum of 1 year can be at that administrative level. If you don't have post-secondary education and you're looking at the 8-year assessment, then a minimum of 5 years have to be at that advisory level, and a maximum of 3 years at the administrative level can be utilized. To qualify in terms of the years of experience and in terms of the examples, all experience has to be at least 51% or HR or more and within the last 10 years. Any leave of absences from work would not count towards this and have to be identified in the application. We do have an executive pathway that looks at the entirety of one's career. We don't touch base about it a whole bunch in today's presentation, but it's a minimum of 10 years of advisory HR experience across your career, and you have to have held or currently hold an executive level position. In addition to a position being at least 51% HR to qualify, we also look at the length of experience in terms of being full-time, which is considered 35 hours or more per week. Less than 35 hours will be prorated, and as I mentioned, any leave of absence cannot be credited towards the years of experience. Regardless of how many hours are worked each week, anything above 35 hours in 1 week is still equivalent to 1 week. So sometimes it might take people a little bit longer if you're working in a part-time role to achieve some of this experience, but keep in mind those 10-year timelines are going to help you out to have some flexibility in what's happening in your life and in your career. From there, Once you have successfully completed the knowledge component, either by passing the national knowledge exam or waiving the national knowledge exam, and you have successfully passed the validation of experience assessment, that is when you become fully designated as a CPHR. Once you become fully designated, there's three main requirements to maintain the designation. This is where that continuing professional development, or CPD, requirement is introduced, where you are advancing and expanding your professional knowledge and practice across the competency areas throughout your career by meeting the CPD requirements, which is 60 hours of professional development activity over each rolling 3-year period and a minimum of 10 hours within each year. There's also a requirement that 3 hours within every 3 years has to relate specifically to ethics. You're also committed to adhering to the Code of Ethics and Rules of Professional Conduct as a CPHR and as a member, and that includes the good character attestation that you fill out at registration and reviewing at the time of renewal, and of course maintaining membership with CPHR Manitoba as set out by CPHR Canada. There are a lot of benefits of membership with CPHR Manitoba. First and foremost, you can work towards earning your CPHR and achieve that high standard of excellence that's recognized nationally through the CPHR designation. So this will allow you to apply for those applications and hold the CPHR candidate status once it's awarded, and potentially the CPHR. You can also continue learning at our conferences, workshops, seminars, and special events. You can also network with other HR professionals, so it's a great way to integrate into the community through the events and through some of our programs, such as the annual mentorship program. You can stay informed through the biannual magazine as well as the weekly newsletter, and you can become involved. So there are volunteer opportunities with CPHR Manitoba staff and board committees, and also sometimes a call out for members looking to connect with post-secondaries and others in the field. You can also be recognized by your peers. CPHR Manitoba hosts an annual HR Excellence Awards where we can get together and celebrate the great things that are happening in the profession for individuals and businesses in Manitoba. You can also take advantage of our HR Career Center. Whether you are a member or non-member, there's some added benefits for members in terms of discounts and access to a free resume review. But this HR Career Center is centralized and pulls in postings from all different areas, and it is specific to HR. There's also a job seeker section through our Career Center that's accessible at CPHRMB.ca, where you can go through and read different articles about interviews, resume building, tips and tricks. And you can also, of course, refer back to Manitoba Start, who has a lot of great resources available as well. CPHR Manitoba has affinity partnerships with Compliance Works, Good Life Fitness Corporate Program, Canada Inns through discounted room rates, and Vengo member perks. There are member discounts for professional development and other opportunities through the association when you become a member. So I highly recommend checking out this list of benefits to see if you can activate upon them and help get yourself integrated, or if you're helping someone else along the way, let them know, as a great way to stay connected with over 2,000 members in Manitoba. Our main contact information is found on this slide. Our team can always be reached at hello@cphrmb.ca by email. We also have a direct phone line where you can reach anyone with the staff, or if you're not sure who you're trying to connect with regarding your inquiry, you can always connect with member services. Our address, we are located at 1810 275 Portage Avenue, but staff are working remotely. So please contact us to set up an appointment if you want to come by. We're happy to see you in person. We just don't want to happen to miss you when we're not here. So please reach out to us in advance so that we can have a conversation and either set up a virtual meeting or set up a meeting in person. So with that, before we open it up to questions, I'm going to hand it over to Ron to give some insights on what he's seeing happening in the profession.
Thank you, Kelly. I mean, since COVID, we've seen an increase in demand for HR services by employers, small and medium. Some of them are doing contract services. We see most of our post-secondary grads getting jobs. Some of them not always full HR jobs, but sort of quasi-HR jobs. We of course recognize international experience to award the designation. And, there isn't a requirement for Canadian experience, but we do find that employers prefer some Canadian experience. That seems to be the reality. We do know that our current past chair, who teaches in one of the programs, when he came from Nigeria, he had to take a post-secondary program, HR program, to demonstrate he had HR Canadian academics, and that helped him secure his first job. So there are some of these things that are realities as well in terms of that, in terms of people, looking at your portfolio in terms of where you are, what type of experience you had in your homeland, what are you doing now? Sometimes maybe an office job might help get that HR job in terms of gaining office experience in Canada. So those are some of the realities that we see in terms of the type of work. Recruitment is, of course, a big area. There's still lots of people working in recruiting, are very busy. Companies have in-house recruitment departments, but are still using third-party recruiters to help them do that. Employee engagement and building culture is a big thing that employers are looking at HR to look at doing. There's a lot of talk around how is AI going to affect HR and organizations, and how is HR going to connect with AI to support employers. That's another big one. And unfortunately, we also see that there's lots of conflict, and there's lots of conflict in the workplace. And we see a lot of our members doing workplace investigation type of work as well. So those are sort of the three top in labor relations. If you've seen the paper, there's lots of different, like Canada Post as an example is one. There seems to be a lot of potential strikes going on. So these are the four areas that we see the most activity in HR at this point in time. I open the floor to any questions to Kaylee or I.
Thank you so much, Kelly and Ron, for the insightful presentation. And now we will be open to questions. We already have someone raise hand. Okay, I'll unmute you and you can ask your question.